Begins. So it's the N in the acronym GAFAN that Europe sometimes fears. And now with a viewing habit of 125 million users all around the world, is Netflix still a friend or a foe of the content industry? Let's discuss the state of the video streaming leader with its CEO. Good afternoon to you, Reed Hastings. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So far, so good?
So far, so good. It's been a great show. We've got many of our content executives here, hearing from many people some great ideas of new shows to make.
So we'll dive into our discussion in a few seconds, but first, video speaks 1,000 words. So what is Netflix up to in Europe? Well, let's watch it together.
Una grande storia può giungere da qualsiasi luogo.
Von den geheimnisvollen Wäldern Deutschlands
İstanbul'un tarihi sokaklarına.
Puede ser en cualquier idioma y en cualquier época.
Może wpłynąć na nasze postrzeganie przeszłości i kazać nam pytać o przyszłość.
Thomas Burta, vabbè.
Sie kann uns fesseln.
Unter uns ist ein Mörder und wir alle sind ein Teil davon.
Una buena historia nos inspira a ser quienes somos.
Cela nous rappelle qu'il faut aimer et rire.
Om at kæmpe for det, vi tror på.
History was not made by those who did nothing.
Las historias tienen el poder de recordarnos que somos más similares que diferentes.
Right, now, come on. It's not about the language. It's about the spirit.
Great stories unite us.
Have faith in the system.
Because it really does work.
La meilleure récompense est le sourire.
So great, isn't it?
So this video actually sums up the strategy you actually revealed a few days ago in Rome during your See What's Next event. $1 billion to be invested in 2018 in European production. We're only talking about original content here, no licensing?
Correct.
And, well, that was a brief answer. Thank you. Can we just deep dive into it so that we can have like more information about what you're up to actually in Europe?
Well, we're investing heavily around the world, and including Europe. And the most amazing thing is in the last quarter, two of our biggest shows, not only in Europe, but biggest around the world, were European shows. So End of the Effin' World and La Casa de Papel, both were as big as any Hollywood hit we've ever had. And so it's just so exciting to see stories from around the world. 3% out of Brazil was another big one, but not quite as big as La Casa de Papel. And, you know, we're excited to see, can we do an amazing Korean show? We've got a Korean zombie show that we hope will be epic. And, you know, we'd like to see some of our great French series work be that popular all around the world.
But if we actually stick to the Eurozone, if I may, what are we about to see in the next upcoming month? How are you actually working with local content producers?
Well, you know, we're debuting The Rain on Friday, so 24 hours from now. It's a Danish show, and that's in competition here. So that's an example of what's in the currently done. And then we've got many, many shows. One's The Eddie with Damien Chazelle, who won Academy Award for Best Director, produced here in France in French, and it's a great musical series. And then we hope to make that popular around the world. And then we've just got a long list of shows.
So, quite frankly, is it a smart way to prove that you're already committed to the 30% quota that Europe actually wants to impel on platforms?
Yeah, I mean, the 30% is a little tough for us. We're not there yet, but luckily it takes effect in 3 years, so we're building up now rapidly towards that.
So let's go back to the local versus global content equation. How do you balance it now that you've reached, again, 125 million users worldwide?
Have you seen our new French movie, Je ne suis pas un homme facile?
Actually, I did.
You did? Okay, so it's a great French farce about
French.
gender switch where women are all powerful in the world and men are leered at and attacked and not taken seriously. And if you're a guy, it's really hard to watch. And maybe it's hard for you too, because it's so insightful. And I bring it up because that's a show that, a movie that we produced here in France, and now it's getting popular all around the world because it speaks to a core issue that people are wrestling with around gender and work.
Well, actually, let's tackle also fact and figure here, because 50% of your revenue now is made outside the US, as well as 55% of your subscribers are also located outside the US. So is, being a global content distributor being an opportunity for you?
Yeah, it turns out most people in the world don't live in the United States. And so...
As a matter of fact.
It's a shocking thing to realize, but it is true. I mean, if you look at other internet companies, they're 80, 90% is international. And most of the companies like YouTube or Facebook or us are blocked in China. So that's all ex-China. And so it's a tremendous opportunity, but that's just looking at it commercially. I think we look at it just as much socially. And this is true within Europe too. If we can make French shows popular in Germany and German shows popular in Spain and Spanish shows popular in France, that's a real help to the whole European vision. And if we can get Americans to watch all these shows also, that's a whole help to all of the West. And then if we can further get everyone excited about Korean shows and Japanese shows, now we're really talking stretching everyone's cultural and global envelope. So we're very ambitious about being a positive force of people understanding other cultures through series and cinema. And we're well positioned to do it because when you're on the internet, you can be available everywhere.
Well, actually, local versus global type of question we're tackling a few minutes ago with our panelists. Everyone wants to grab a piece of this cake. Local content, local producers, local storytellers. How do you make them work with you? What's your pitch here?
Money helps.
Yeah, but actually, okay, that's definitely the answer I wanted, because is it somehow raising the game in terms of prices? I mean, are we entering a sort of bubble from this perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the number of shows, series in particular, created around the world now is tremendous and growing. And there's never been a better time to be a writer, director, producer, actor. It's not only us, it's all the GAFA, and then all the traditional people are all investing heavily. So that's very exciting. Is it a bubble? I don't think so. I think what's happening is the internet is opening up new ways of enjoying content, like the mobile phone, tablets, in addition to the television. Plus you add all of binge viewing, which didn't exist before the internet. And people are getting more satisfaction from these. So I think it can sustain what we're seeing, and more so. I mean, some people say, boy, there's so much on Netflix, I can never keep up with it. And I say, oh, you know, there's so many shows that we've turned down that we wanted to produce that we just didn't have the budget for.
Which one, for instance?
So I can't wait until our budget is even bigger and we can say yes more often.
So actually, following up, which type of show did you turn down that you were really willing to have on the platform, but just for money reason couldn't make?
You know, we're really excited about the shows we did get to make.
I understand. So now language is actually a major challenge and opportunity at the same time when it comes to local content again. Is it a competitive advantage for your originals?
Well, I don't know. If you look at major films, they're dubbed in 40 languages around the world. We're not quite there yet. We're in the high 20s, but we're making great progress. And we definitely want You know, The Rain, you've seen some of, and it's a fantastic show, and you can watch it in Danish with French subtitles or with French dubbing, or German, Spanish, Portuguese, many languages. So we're knocking down those barriers, you know, in the same way that global film has for a long time. The great thing about Netflix, or really any internet service, is you can decide per show, per day, do you want to watch it dubbed, subtitles? You can have, you know, Turkish subtitles and French language, and you listen to the English. So, I mean, it's just amazing what you can do with the internet and choosing. And that, again, opens up the experience and lets people try. Because on linear, the programmer has to decide for the person, this is a subtitle original language channel or a dub channel, and we get to let the individual person decide, and that's just much more powerful.
Call it user empowerment?
Exactly.
So can you actually subtitle some of your contents in Ch'ti?
Only Danny Boone knows Ch'ti, and we're very excited to be doing a show with him, and not only for people in Lille, but you know, for people all through France and all through the world.
And you actually sat with him a few days ago to actually try to understand better about this Ch'ti culture inside the French culture, so let's watch it together.
I have to tell you something, Reed. It's not that easy. I'm very worried about Netflix. You're missing something.
What are we missing?
The Ch'ti touch. Let me pitch you an amazing idea I just had. Two powerful men are fighting for the power of a town.
I've seen it, yes.
You've seen it?
Marseille.
No, Tourcoing.
What other great ideas do you have?
A bunch of kids who like bicycles and mystery. They're looking for a friend who has disappeared, kidnapped by a monster, with the typical scream of Novo France. Stranger Lille. Iron Frit, Dark Mirror, Riverdale, Maroilles of Cards.
There are many good things to work on together, Danny.
I hope so.
I'm looking forward to your comedy special. Maybe we should start with that. Bilout.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Bilout. On Netflix. That's how we call you in Nova France.
So he's as strange for you as he is for me?
Indeed. Well, actually, it's going to bring us to a question we already tackled together 4 years ago when you were launching, actually, in France. You were seen at the time as a friend or foe type of stakeholder in the industry. So 4 years later, do you feel more welcome in France and Europe?
Absolutely. Orange is one of our major partners, Altice, and they're integrating our service in so that it's very easy to get. Certainly the production community has been very excited about their shows getting funded and underwritten by Netflix. So we've got many allies in that way, as we're really part of the pay television industry.
So we're definitely a potential partner now?
Yeah, yeah, we're absolutely a partner. I mean, you know, we're also a competitor for OCS, and yet Orange knows that if they carry Netflix also, they'll both be successful. And we've seen this in the US, where over 50% of households are Netflix subscribers. So you might think, well, HBO would shrink, but in fact, HBO has grown over the last 10 years because they do great content. And so there's room for many of us to do great content, and people will subscribe to multiple services, just like they listen to multiple musicians or read multiple books, if there's great stuff to enjoy.
But the question actually, when you launched in France and then in Europe and then globally, was not only about, I mean, this competition inside the content industry. It was about a fiscal question. So bottom line is, as an N again in the GAFAN, do you feel like you're paying enough taxes in Europe?
Yeah, most of those companies are ad-supported, and that creates a different situation. But because we're subscription, we collect 20% VAT and remit that to the government. And then we're investing, as you pointed out in the beginning, over €1 billion this year in local original content. And that's quite different from GAFA because, you know, we spend all our money on media and on content rather than on technology. And because we spend all of our budget on media and content, we can do that around the world.
So actually, what is your view or proposals in multiple countries from Netflix to, again, pay tax into culture fund? I mean, because of course, and again, the quota question I was referring to is definitely breaking the news today, but it's also a question on how we can actually have a new perspective on the way we do finance creation in this continent. So what's your perspective first on the way we do actually finance content creation here? And would you have any smart proposals, smart partnership to come up with?
Well, the primary way that people finance shows is working with companies like ours and our competitors to finance those shows. But in addition, there's state support, particularly in France. And what we have to do is, as we become part of the pay TV industry, we have to figure out how to work within the systems. And I know people see us as an outsider, and you know, honestly, that's been true. But as we grow, we know that it's our responsibility to try to figure out all the systems in different countries and be a constructive partner rather than be on the outside.
So why is, again, I'm going to have perspective type of question or crystal ball type of questions again, but what is your view on regulation overall? Do you think regulation can be sometimes preventing innovation from happening? Or do you think that, yeah, at the end of the day, we need some regulation, could it be smart?
Well, regulation's critical to order. If you think if we didn't have regulation in banking, it would be chaos. And so, yeah, there's absolutely great regulation that's very useful. And then it's up to us just in every country to participate and to figure out and to follow those regulations. I know at times, you know, we have a reputation as a disruptor, and sometimes we make mistakes. I think we got into, you know, more of a difficult situation in the Cannes Film Festival than we meant to, because, you know, we're not trying to disrupt the movie system. We're trying to make our members happy by producing content for them. And, you know, what we'll do now is mostly focus on series and stand-up and docu-series. There's so much great content we can do without, you know, disrupting or being perceived to disrupt the movie side.
Well, actually, let's deep dive into this movie question right now, because I can remember that, and we all remember that Netflix is already 20 years old, and every 10 years you're pivoting to a new different system, and you're trying to disrupt. It's still, you know, challenging for the industry you're trying to enter, but trying to find new patterns, new models for your audiences. And 10 years ago, it was, of course, the internet television. Now, it might be movies and the movie industry. And you were referring to the Cannes controversy. Cannes is actually upcoming. It's around the corner, like Sunday. Would you give Cannes a chance again next year?
Oh, we love the Cannes Film Festival. I mean, we've been for many years. We've still got some buyers going this year. And they're very sincere of trying to figure out a model that works for them and works for us. So I'm sure over time, you know, we'll definitely do that. But for now, we're mostly producing movies for our members. We look at it and say, our members are paying for the movies. They pay us these fees to go invest that money. And so we want to make sure that our members can get, you know, equal access to to our films.
And that's definitely the way you actually explained the Okja controversy last season. But again, the fact that the rules of the game had to change actually for the selection, the competition part of the Cannes Festival this year, is mainly because players such as yourself weren't releasing their film in theaters. So question is Netflix an anti-theater actor?
No, I mean, all of us at Netflix, we go and watch movies in the theater, you know, just like we all know how to cook, and yet we still go to restaurants. These are very compatible experiences. I watch a lot of television and still enjoy going to the movie theater. So it's just that if our members are funding a movie, then we want that to be available to our members and not behind a 3-year holdback. So that's the main issue for us. But it works fine if we just treat our movies as series and release them directly to our members and not try to compete with the theatrical system.
But actually, there were some information gathered by the American outlets and media saying that you were trying to buy a theater chain for yourself. Is that true?
The thing that everybody wants to do is sell something to Netflix now. We're the deep pockets. So, you know, it said that we're going to buy billboard companies and movie theaters and lots of things. So don't take those seriously.
Do I have to take seriously the rumor that EuropaCorp might be on your to-do list? Luc Besson company?
Well, we do love Luc Besson, but I can't say any more on that. I can't really comment on it.
Okay, I love playing Rumor Busters with you. It's very, very entertaining. So now, actually, let's zero in France again, because there's a very specific question related to the movie industry and to the TV distribution industry. It's the media chronology. What's your perspective on this?
Well, the chronology is a very French-specific system, and I think it's up to the French people to figure out how they want to organize the cinema industry. We have no problem with the chronology, so it's been, you know, pretty successful for the French film industry. Some people in France want it to change, that's fine. But mostly we're focused on series and docu-series and stand-up and kids shows, and that's our main focus.
Which is actually a focus that I've shifted from a typical original drama type of investments and producing to now shows. I mean, you're expanding. So what trends could you come up with in the next few seasons?
Well, there's so much creativity going on in the series side where people are figuring out new ways of telling stories. You know, when you look at The Rain and you know, in the past it's pretty hard to fund a series like that in Denmark because it didn't have a big enough local market. But with Netflix, we're able to fund it at a high level, so the production values are stunning. And then, you know, and we can do that because of the global audience for it.
And actually, we're talking about content for sure, and it's all that we want. We're all actually engaged in a competition for the time, for the money, and for the attention of our audiences. So how do you solve this equation? How do you get your audiences hooked on Netflix?
You know, we're really focused on just taking creative bets. Some of our shows work out fantastically, others don't, and it's okay. You know, we want to.
You mean you're beta testing the shows?
Think of it as we want to let creators tell a story, and it might be controversial, it might be unique, and it might work for a lot of people or just a few people. And we have to be humble that these are very hard things to predict and just let creators tell. And the advantage of internet over linear is that we can bet on multiple shows at once. Whereas in linear, you're programming just for certain time slots. And so the structural advantage is being able to produce lots of content and then let the audience figure out what they love. And then there's a lot more variety, a lot more diversity of taste. You don't have the programmer limiting what people see. You really have people able to explore what they want to watch.
Speaking of linear television versus the internet type of model or patterns, actually, 2017 has been quite a milestone for Netflix because it's the very first time that in the US territory, you've actually surpassed cable networks. Do you see this kind of trend upcoming in Europe sometime soon?
Well, we're not really bigger than, that's because of satellite. So if you put cable and satellite together, we're still much smaller than them. But you know, here's the main thing is that, again, I said we're over 50% of households, and yet total cable and satellite is down like 3%. Okay, so the whole thing about cord cutting, you know, it's very exciting to talk about, but in a practical basis, people are seeing Netflix as one pay TV network, and they watch from many. They, you know, in the U.S. they watch on Showtime, here from OCS and Canal Plus, and so again, you know, it's more fun to talk about it as competitors, but in fact, people are watching on multiple networks.
And how actually are you yourself watching more of your shows on Netflix?
Mine is more Netflix than HBO, yes. But like HBO, this great series, The Defiant Ones, that is fantastic. Now, HBO has it in the US, and then they let us carry it internationally. And so I definitely, if you want to watch a great HBO show on Netflix in Europe, it's The Defiant Ones.
So, yeah, absolutely. Let's bring actually the discussion to the audience itself, because if we're having this kind of conversation, it's, again, because we want to tell great stories to great audiences as wider as possible. So, if I'm doing the math quite correctly, Netflix will make more than 700 original shows in 2018. So, again, don't you fear some kind of content fatigue when it comes to shows and content? Because actually the audience has to keep up with the shows, and you have to keep up with the audience, so it's a never-ending type of running gag.
You know, if we made 700 shows of the same type, that might be too much, but there's such variety. I mean, we have these Korean shows, we have Japanese shows, Brazilian, French, German, Danish, Hollywood. So we have so many types. I feel like, no, I mean, what I feel bad for is all the great creators that we haven't given a platform yet to. And, you know, I wish we could take up the number of shows in the budget to be able to get even more voices, you know, and to give, again, consumers a chance to choose what they want.
Again, speaking of competition and all those smart players in the industry, who do you think is your biggest competitors right now?
Well, biggest competitors are other pay TV networks. So in France, Canal Plus, OCS, yeah, still, and HBO. And but again, in the kind of competition, they do some great work. And if we all do great content, people will watch us more and maybe do video gaming less. So, you know, it's up to us to be really inventive and to pull in young audiences.
And speaking of young audiences, actually, and the territory you're actually covering or not covering, how do you see the Asian and the Chinese competition upcoming? Because Alibaba and Tencent have been major investment when it comes to content, local content. And of course, you haven't entered China yet, but still, how do you see this kind of competition upcoming?
Well, the Chinese companies are very specialized and very competitive in China, not as much outside of China. So our main focus is how do we produce like great Bollywood content. We have a recent one, Love Per Square Foot, that's been very successful in India. And how do we then get Bollywood cross-fertilized? And so then that we can get that kind of content to be successful around the world, and so that people understand the sort of storytelling traditions in that. So for Asia, for us, it's really focused on India, Japan, Korea, other markets other than China.
What about Africa?
Africa's a great market for us too. We're growing all throughout the continent as there's more and more fast broadband. We've got our first Arabic original that's filming in Jordan, and we're continuing to do more Arabic content, and then we'll do more content throughout Africa also.
Speaking of culture, what type of culture are you actually trying to create within Netflix, within the company?
Well, the main thing we want people, employees, to focus on is, you know, taking bets and really being creative. You know, when you're in a big corporation, it's so easy to get programmed and to get narrow. And so we encourage people to make mistakes. I know that probably sounds crazy, but, you know, we want all different types of shows to get created so that that's how we'll discover like a La Casa de Papel kind of brilliant, explosive, different kind of show.
What is then the biggest bet you took over the past few months?
God, there's so many bets. I'm trying to think of like the biggest bet. You know, we did a very big bet about 2 years ago, The Crown, because it was one of the biggest budgets we've ever greenlit up front. And that's definitely worked out. That series is popular around the world, and it's just, you know, elaborate sets and beautiful production values. And Peter Morgan has just done an amazing job with that. Speaking
of The Crown then, again, another type of information broke the news a few days ago. Claire Foy, finally, who was keeping up with the salary she should have actually earned in the very first season of The Crown. And it's all about gender equality. At the end of the day, and at the end of this super special season when it comes in the content industry, when it comes to gender equality, do you think women can definitely make a difference in this industry?
Absolutely, and we're leading the pack in terms of representation on screen, off screen, directors. We're making significant efforts and progress on that front. And in a way, you know, we had made some progress even before this, but you know, we wish we were even farther ahead on that, and we'll continue to invest in that. There's so many great both female-driven stories and creators that it's exciting to be working with them.
How many female showrunners do you carry on Netflix?
It's a large, I mean, we have hundreds of showrunners in total, but I know the numbers are quite impressive, you know, compared to the industry and increasing.
Wonderful. So now let's take a step back and, you know, consider what has been happening when it comes to the digital economy, like a larger scale, especially when it comes to the data-driven economy. And I know you're very interested in this. We can, of course, refer to the Facebook controversy, the Cambridge Analytica controversy, and the fact that, again, and you know this by heart, you do, as a user, trust actually a technology or then use a technology because of this crucial link of trust. If you don't trust something, you're not going to use it. So if I don't trust any type of platform for using my data, I'm not going to give my data ever again to this platform. It can be Facebook, it can be Netflix. How do you make sure that you're actually protecting your user from data misuses?
Don't you think the Cambridge Analytica story would make a great movie?
Oh yeah, it's great storytelling here.
The big advantage we have is not selling advertising. So we only have one purpose, which is making our members happy. And if we do, then they continue to subscribe. So we don't sell any data. We don't integrate data. We don't need to. It's not part of the business model. Because we're subscription with no advertising, it's very easy for us to be super protective, high privacy. And so it just, again, because our business model is not advertising, it's an easy one for us.
Are you sure you're going to keep it that way?
Yes.
Thank you. So now it also leads us to another question about regulation. And you know that a really important piece of regulation concerning data and privacy is upcoming here in Europe, May 25th. It's the GDPR. Are you going to be GDPR compliant?
Yes, absolutely. But again, there's very few changes for us because the big changes are for the advertising-based company that integrate. They want to build a whole profile of you. And for us, it's very straightforward of updating our terms and services. And we've always been very high on the privacy side, not sharing your viewing history with anyone for obvious reasons.
Or just using it for you to just improve the user experience, right?
We do, you know, if you watch a lot of romantic comedies, we'll suggest other ones. If you
How do you know this?
Of historic British shows, we'll do that. So we do learn from what you watch to be able to help you.
Now, yeah, and I'm sorry, deep dive into it.
But importantly, we have a thing called profiles. That's, you can set up a different profile for your kids or spouse. And anytime you want, you can open a new profile and see what Netflix looks like if it knows nothing about you. So it's kind of like incognito mode on a browser. So you can always see, you know, what are the most popular, what are the things if we don't know anything about you. So we want to make people very comfortable because of, you know, personalization worries some people. But then if they can look and see the unpersonalized version by just creating a new profile, it reassures them that the personalization is helpful to them. Now
there's one very question you've been really keen, and yourself, not on Netflix, to defend over the past 3 years. It's net neutrality. You seem to have changed and not be defending the neutrality that much since what happened in Washington. Actually, how are you still standing for net neutrality, Reed?
You know, net neutrality is critical to the functioning of the internet. We haven't backed off at all. It's that the expectation of net neutrality is now broadly established. So think of it as, you know, we've won on consumer expectations, and the consumers have won with net neutrality, and everybody expects that. And that's very powerful. And all of the ISPs are respecting it also. So nobody wants to battle over it anymore. And so our point of view is just that, you know, we've won on that victory. And again, everyone is respecting that around the world.
Let's finish with a brief note on innovation, if you may. Are you testing VR? Are you testing AI? Are you testing all those innovative tool that can be actually employed to develop better user experience, but what's more, better storytelling.
You know, I think VR will turn out to be a gaming format. So if you have a PlayStation or Xbox, you know, it's that kind of super immersive, intense experience. And that's very different from storytelling. If you think of the roots of the play, and for 3,000 or 5,000 years we had plays, and then that evolved to movies, and now movies and series. It's where I listen to you tell me a story, and you know, and then it's like the parent relationship. You grow up as a small child listening to your parent and elders telling you stories. And so I think the me tell you the story is a very human, enduring form. Now, there's another thing called gaming, and you know, whether that's chess or cards or video gaming, that's a fine thing too. I prefer linear stories, the stories that we do where you know, the artistic talent in this room and elsewhere is thinking of a story, telling a story, and I think that will be a very enduring human art form.
One pilot every 10 years for Netflix. Where do you think the next 10 years will lead you to?
Well, the big one for us is producing around the world. You know, historically, we produce mostly in Hollywood, and now we're rapidly expanding everywhere. We talked about the $1 billion. That's just $1 billion in European funding this year. It'll be more next year.
How much? Tell
Well,
us.
it depends on how much we grow. Depends how many of your friends you get to sign up for Netflix.
There you go.
We're
I don't have that large community anyway, so.
So the big pivot for us is becoming a great global producer where we're working well with many different cultures and then sharing that content rather than being Hollywood to the world.
Do you think you'll still be around in 10 years?
I sure hope so.
Thank you so much. Well, actually, you are still up and running for this very festival, Series Mania, since you have won a big show in competition. You told it, it's the reign, of course. Let's watch a trailer together before we actually relieve you for a coffee break again.
Meldinger fra Vordingborg vidner om akutte allergiske reaktioner og respirationsproblemer blandt ældre borgere.
Du kan aldrig vide, hvornår verden forandrer sig.
Men øjenvidner fortæller, at symptomerne kom efter et voldsomt regnskyld.
Men når den gør, skal du være klar.
Der er noget i regnen. En virus.
Hvor skal vi hen?
Ned! Vi er der om lidt! Kom. I sikkerhed her er jeg den eneste, der kan løse det. Der er ingen, der må finde Rasmus. Han er nøglen til det hele. Jeg kommer tilbage så hurtigt jeg kan. Lover jeg. Der er gået 5 år. Far kommer ikke. Jeg vil ud og prøve.
Vi tager dem med. De ved, hvor der er mad. Alle blev slået ihjel, da regnen kom.
Den var ikke ud med det samme. De er nødt og smitte en helvedes masse, inden de selv krassede af. Du skal finde den bunker inden solnedgang. Det eneste, jeg er ansvarlig for, er Rasmus.
Du tror, verden er som før. Det er den ikke.
Få nu til skøj!
Hvad fanden er I for nogle dyr?
Du har smittet. Snart hendes fod rørt vandet.
Nej!
Du fucker med dig, Martin.
Ejer hun dig?
Der er ikke nogen, der ejer hende i den her verden. Det handler jo ikke bare om at overleve. Det handler om håb.
Stay dry, stay alive.
Well, in Lille, seriously, stay dry in Lille. Do you know about the crachant Lillois? Sometimes it can rain in this country, but it's a ch'ti thing. Thank you so much, Reed Hastings. Actually, the rain is in competition here at Series Mania and will be released in 24 hours from now in the platform.
That's correct. Binge away tomorrow night.
Thank you so much again. Thanks for...
Thank you to everyone.